Happy Monday, everybody. Jason Priester, Clemson Insider. Want to thank everybody that's tuning in on the night of the national title game, and guarantee, I know I say it every week, I'm not going to run over. Not running over tonight. National title game. Matter of fact, this might even be an abbreviated version, so we can all get in front of our television sets. Before we get started, I want to take a moment to thank our sponsor, A-Glass, name on the show. A-Glass for when you need a glass. 2 locations in the PD, one in Florence, one in Sumter. All your auto glass needs, they do replacement, repair. Get yourself a free quote, myaglass.com. That's right. Can't run too late tonight, Sarian. I got you. Hey, is it just me, or is that, I was actually, it was kind of a big coincidence here, because I was actually planning on starting off talking about the national title game, and a buddy of mine texted me like 2 minutes ago and says, does it just feel like there's no buzz to this thing? There's just doesn't feel like there's a lot of buzz in the air surrounding this game. And it's 2 of the biggest brands, Ohio State, Notre Dame. And for those asking me who I'm going with, I'm going with Ohio State. I think I picked Ohio State to win it all before the season started. Notre Dame's got some injuries on that offensive line, so I'm rolling with Ohio State. Not saying I'm pulling for them, but that's who I'm picking to win. But it just feels like there's not a lot of, I guess buzz is the right word to use. I think they might have stretched this thing out just a little bit too far. It's January 20th, and we've not played the national title game yet. We are just, I'm not a big time NFL guy anymore, not to the degree I used to be, but most are, and we are deep into the NFL playoffs now. I don't know that playing it this late is what's best for the sport. There's got to be a way to move it up some, even in the expanded playoff. I think that's something they need to take a look at. But I'm not gonna run too late tonight. I'm gonna try to get off even before 8 o'clock. So like I said, everybody can be parked in front of their television sets. Thought we could talk about the restructuring of the, football staff. We can dive into some basketball. Gonna really start diving into baseball next week, but if you got some baseball questions, throw them at me. I'll see if I can answer them. Practice starts this weekend. I forgot exactly what date it was, but sometime this weekend. I know we're going to hear from Eric Backich on Thursday. Can't remember if practice actually starts Thursday or Friday, but it's going to be cold. But I thought the restructuring of the staff would be a good place to start. I saw a lot of people after Dabo announced that Tom Allen wasn't going to be out on the road recruiting and Ben Boulware was going to go in his place, and that they might even do the same thing on the offensive side of the ball and send Taj Boyd out on the road instead of, Garrett Riley. I don't think this is as big a deal as some people are making it out to be. We're talking about coaches being out on the road during the contact period, which are very short periods of times, a couple of times a year. It's been going on for, there was a little quick dead period, but it's been going on for 2-3 weeks now, and it's going to go on for another 2-3 weeks. You really don't need your defensive coordinator out on the road recruiting, especially in this day and age. You got FaceTime, Zoom calls. There's all different ways to get him face to face with a guy without him having to actually get on a plane and go visit him. And Clemson's far from the first school doing this. I mean, Tom Allen wasn't traveling at Penn State last year. And I kind of like the idea of sending Boulware in his place. There's probably not many out there better suited to be an ambassador for your school. I actually touched base with 5-star linebacker Tyler Atkinson. I think it was yesterday. I think that was the first kid that it was Boulware and Dabo and Mickey Khan went and visited him. I think it was Friday. I think that was actually the first guy they visited. I might be wrong about that. My memory's starting to really, really suck these days. But if he wasn't the first, he was one of the first. And I could just tell by the way Atkinson spoke about Boulware, he was impressed with his, personality. Let's put it that way. Some people have kind of jumped to the conclusion that Boulware is going to be the linebackers coach. Now, I don't think that's what Dabo said the other day. He's going to be more involved, but I think we might need to start thinking about this thing differently than we have in years past, like where one coach is specific to this position or specific to that position. It sounds like Allen's going to focus a lot on linebackers, but he's going to coach other positions as well. His son's going to, I don't know what his title's going to be yet, but he's coming and he's going to be coaching linebackers. So it's kind of going to be more of a team effort, it sounds like, more so than one guy leading the charge. So I wouldn't worry about that too much either. But if you know a lot about Boulware, yes, he's only got the 1 year under his belt coaching, but he's going to have a lot of help. That's the kind of mentality you want coaching, or at least helping coach linebackers. You're talking about a guy with a extremely high football IQ, not the most. He wasn't a 5-star guy coming out of high school. He wasn't a 4-star guy coming out of high school. He was kind of one of those under the radar guys that didn't get a lot of love on the recruiting trail, and his football IQ makes up for some of those physical limitations. And now you got guys at linebacker, particularly with Sammy Brown, and I think Wade Wood has it too. I think both of them have extremely high football IQs, and both of them they have the physical skill set too. Don't know a whole lot about Jeremiah Alexander yet. He's definitely got the physical part down. I'm not familiar enough with him to know about his football IQ, but you definitely got two of those guys in there that have that kind of mentality. I'm kind of anxious to see where this thing leads because I kind of like the way they're doing it. I don't think Allen needs to be out on the road. I like the idea of him, spending this time, but now until spring practice starts, getting everybody on the same page. I know Dabo talked about terminology and those things, but they got a lot of things to learn about the way he runs his defense, his scheme. So there's a lot of things to do between now and the start of spring practice, just for the coaches. So to me, I can see the thinking behind keeping him on campus instead of out on the road, and trying to get as much done in a short amount of time as possible. Some of y'all might disagree with that. You can let me know in the comments, and we can discuss. Clemson basketball finally wins an overtime game. They had been 0 for 2, lost to Memphis in overtime, lost to South Carolina in overtime. Looked like they were going to drop this one in overtime. Man, they were smoking hot coming out of the gate. And then Pitt started playing a little bit better in the second half, and I thought the crowd started to affect Clemson a little bit. The shooting cooled off some, and they kind of hung on, and then they kind of turned it. I got a couple of big threes from Chauncey and Chase, particularly Chase, late in that overtime period. Chase has kind of iced it. Chauncey's was a big one too, make no mistake. But with Clemson, with the basketball team, they might go as Ian Shefflin goes. He had another double-double the other day. For those of you that watched the game Tuesday night at Georgia Tech, you kind of got a glimpse at exactly how he's struggling with some of these back issues and back spasms is what Brad Brownell called them. Says it's not an injury, it's more about, spasms. So there's no timetable. You don't know how he's going to feel from one day to the next. They're just kind of having to keep their fingers crossed there. It looked like he wasn't quite as uncomfortable Saturday. Again, he had I think it was 15 points, 11 rebounds. It was his 8th double-double of the year. The last 4 have come on the road, but that's a guy you can't afford to lose. I think Brownell's the kind of coach that'll be able to maximize the potential of a guy like Christian Reeves, but it's not going to be this year. You might start seeing the fruits of that labor pay off next year. They really need Ian. So when you hear Brownell talking about how I'm just keeping my fingers crossed, that's a little bit scary because he's kind of the glue that holds that thing together. Not to discount Chase's contributions, but there's not a lot of, when you start talking about, the size guys, the big guys, is kind of Locken and Shefflin, and Reeves. That's kind of it. If you lose one of those guys, particularly Shefflin, I think that could be disastrous. So fingers crossed in that regard. Yeah, who am I picking? I'm picking Ohio State. I was thinking about it earlier today. And I was trying to remember who I picked to win it all before the season started, and I want to say I picked Ohio State. But there's a little part of me saying, nah, you picked Georgia. I can't remember for sure which one, but it was one of the two. But either way, I think Ohio State's going to win. I think they're starting to. They said, since the playoff has started, since the postseason has started. They've kind of turned into the team that everybody thought they were going to be this year. They've looked really good, really good. See, my man says he forgot the title game was today. It's kind of easy to do that because, again, there's just not a whole lot of talk about it. Not like, to me, it just feels way different than it did last year, year before that. It just seems like there's not as much attention on it as there usually is, and maybe I'm over exaggerating that a little bit. That's just kind of how it feels to me. It might not feel that way to everybody else, but I'm not a big fan of having it this late in the month of January. I'd like to see them tweak it somehow and kind of shorten this playoff up. So I'm not necessarily saying shorten the amount of teams, although I'm not a big fan of the 12, but just shorten the time frame in which they do it. really weird that this college football playoff cycle has become a north-south argument on the internet. Feel like I jumped back 75 years. I don't spend a whole lot of time on Twitter, but I have seen some of that. And I'm guilty of this too. So let me get that out of the way right from the beginning. But I just think there's so many people out there that, let's say Ohio State fans, Notre Dame fans, Michigan fans, or whoever, whatever team in the Big Ten, that are just so tired of the SEC rhetoric, man, that they're gonna jump on that bandwagon in a hurry. And I think, due to the portal and the NIL stuff, and it's created a lot more parity, and we really started to see it this year. I think we've seen more parity in 2024 than we've seen in, I don't know how long, man. It's so long I can't remember. During that for so long during the BCS era and pretty much during the playoff era, it was there's a handful. You knew you was going to have 2 or 3 teams from the SEC and the Ohio States or maybe Michigan, and for a while there, Southern Cal and Texas. There's some of those blue bloods splattered in there, and then Clemson bursts on the scene there at the beginning of the playoff era. But I just think there's so many people that are ready to see something different, and they're ecstatic that there's no SEC team in there, even though, let's say Texas would have beat Ohio State. To me, Texas still doesn't feel like an SEC team. It's going to take some getting used to. I mean, technically they are. To me, they just don't feel like it. But yeah, it has been kind of entertaining to see some of the stuff on the internet, particularly Twitter or X or whatever we're calling it today. But I think a lot of that's just pure joy about no SEC team being in there. Change the schedule as needed, but I think the championship should happen January 21st. That would be hard. I think that would be hard to do with a 12-team playoff. You'd have to start the season early August, middle of August. But I do think that there's a way you could have it wrapped up by the end of the first week in January, by the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. Although don't get me wrong, man, I'd love to see the season end on New Year's Day. For so long to me that, New Year's Day signified the end of the college football season, with the Rose Bowl and the Orange Bowl and the Sugar Bowl and all that. But if they could work it out, I'd absolutely be a fan of that. 100%. Love to hear your thoughts on linebacker coach. Not sure. See, I don't think we fully know the structure of it yet. I think a lot of people are jumping to conclusions here about how they think it's going to play out. Dabo was not very specific about, exactly what Bowere's role was going to be from a coaching standpoint. Just, it was pretty clear he's going to take on a more of an expanded role. But he also, said on more than one occasion that Allen was going to at least, he was going to work out of the linebackers room. So he's going to have a lot of hands on there. I mean, I just think some people are getting a little worked up over something they don't fully know how it's going to play out yet. It's like I said in the beginning, I think we're going to have to start thinking about this a little bit differently than we always have. I don't know that, you're going to have just one guy. Maybe I don't know that you're going to have just one senior linebacker coach in name. But I think there's going to be plenty of coaching with the linebackers. Heck, Lorenzo Ward's still there, as far as I know. I know he was had some input with the linebackers last year. I don't know how much, but that's who he was coaching at the practices I was there. And again, Allen's son's going to be coming and be involved with the linebackers. Allen's going to be involved with the linebackers. I think people are getting ahead of themselves thinking Boulware is going to run the room and be the linebackers coach. Jim Phillips doesn't want us playing. Man, that he should have kept those thoughts to himself. Some of the couple there's no way a couple of those things are happening. They don't even make any sense. If you're talking about letting the ACC champion, regular season champion, get your auto bid into the playoff, and then your second and third place teams play on that championship Saturday. The only way that makes any sense if you get more than one auto bid. What are they playing for? It doesn't make any sense at all, unless there's an auto bid on the line. I have heard some rumblings that the SEC is thinking about doing something similar. When they start getting, 3 or 4 auto bids every year, maybe their SEC champion doesn't play in the SEC championship and it kind of goes away and they have 1 or 2 play-in games on that day, but they're playing for automatic bids into the playoff. The ACC is not going to be playing for that. So I kind of see that as much ado about nothing, unless suddenly when they expand it again, the ACC gets 2 auto bids. Then you got something to play for. I mean, I just don't know how it makes any sense any other way. I don't even. That's probably something he should have kept to himself, man. I can't see the head coaches being on board with it. No matter how much sweating Rhett Lashley was doing the night before selection Saturday or selection Sunday, some years maybe it would work out. Heck, there would be some instances where it would bite you in the rear end. What happens if your third place team beats your second place team and knocks them out? And they're no longer, even eligible to be an at-large. So, I mean, I wouldn't worry too much about that. I could see the ACC going to a 9-game conference schedule at some point. But some of that stuff that Phillips was talking about yesterday, it was more like he sounded more like he was brainstorming on the air. Sometimes you got to know when not to say something. My position starters for baseball. Think you'll have Gerald catching. I'm guessing it's going to be Gaff. I reserve the right to change my mind and after I actually go watch practice, but just based on what I've seen in fall ball, I think Gaffney's at first, Purifies at second, Chufo's at short, although I could see a scenario where Chufo's playing third. Golly, what's the other? Who is it that I was thinking about at third? Somebody's escaping my mind. Obviously, Cam in center field. You got there's going to be some guys that probably deserve to play that aren't going to be playing every day. It's going to be interesting to see how Bakich keeps all those guys happy. He actually talked a little bit about that on an interview I saw the other day, but Crichton's a guy I can see in the outfield most days. Obviously, Dominic Listy is going to be playing every day. That might be 3 outfielders right there. Who was it that I was thinking about at third, though? There was a lot of different guys playing third in the fall ball scrimmages I went to. I'll tell you the one that I saw playing third that I really liked was the freshman Josh Castellani. That guy might be hard to keep off the field. Obviously, I think Canuck's going to be your Friday starter. The transfer, Michael Gillen, I think he's going to be in the rotation. We'll see who the third guy is. After listening to Dabo and Allen again, I got the impression Allen will be spending time with each group, maybe coaching some position coaches, more leaning linebacker mostly. That's kind of the way he didn't really give specifics, but that's kind of I kind of made that leap too. It sounded like Allen's gonna be available to coach multiple positions if need be. My only worries for linebacker coach are too many cooks in the kitchen and how great of a teacher are these guys. Allen's got a great reputation for being a teacher, and so does his son so far. I've heard nothing but good things about him. Obviously, I mean, we don't know what kind of teacher Boulware is, but again, I don't know that you should be looking at him as like the lead linebacker coach because I'm not sure that's how it's going to play out. Like I said a minute ago, you got what's his name in there? Golly, I don't forgot his name all of a sudden. Whammy. That used to be the defense coordinator at South Carolina. You got him that's going to be in there. So, I mean, they've got some teachers. Make no mistake, they've got some guys that can coach. I just don't know that we should be looking at Boulware as the lead linebacker coach because that's not exactly what Dabo said. I know there's a lot of people that have made that leap already. Without better explanation, this opens up a lot of criticism like in the past because I don't think Boulware has ever coached any. 1 year, he was basically a volunteer assistant last year for Clemson. That's why I say I think it's a mistake to look at him as the lead linebacker coach. And it might not even be on paper set up that way anymore. Dabo talked about wanting to kind of professionalize the staff, and you might not have just one guy specific to one position in certain spots. We'll see how it all plays out, but again, you've got multiple guys there with a lot of years of experience coaching linebackers. Lorenzo Ward, that's what I was trying to think of. And Tom Allen being two of them. Tom Allen's son, I don't know how long he's been doing it, but he's kind of worked with linebackers, and he's very well thought of. So there's guys in there that are able to lead the way and kind of show these guys, put them on the right path, so to speak. I wouldn't get too caught up in looking at Boulware as like the linebackers coach, the way Wes was the past couple of years, or the way Venables was while he was at Clemson, because I don't know that it's going to be structured that way anymore. Wes was the highest football IQ you can get. So I'd be careful with that. Yeah, that's not exactly what I'm talking about. I'm talking about actually on the field football IQ, not necessarily, being able, what we're talking about with Wes kind of being the rain man of football and stuff. I'm not necessarily talking about that. I'm talking about like the end game tangibles. Go back, I've actually ran across some of them on Twitter yesterday or today, but might have been today or yesterday. I can't remember. Of how many times Boulware knew what play was coming, almost instantly. It's that kind of football IQ. Stuff on the field, not necessarily some of the other stuff we were referencing with West Me. That's kind of two different things. And to me, a lot of that stuff can make up for a guy who might not be quite as talented as the guy beside him, but if his football IQ is higher, he can make up for it. That's why I think Ben Boulware was so successful. That's why I think a guy like James Skowski was so successful. Same thing with Chad Smith. Those are three linebackers that were not the most talented guys on the field. due to their football IQ, they look like they might be at times. So that's kind of, I'm kind of talking about a little something different. Some guys have it, some guys don't. I'm talking about from a playing standpoint, not necessarily from a coaching standpoint. Seems like the basketball team has a problem passing the ball at times. At least to me, it seems like they absolutely had some issues passing the ball down low the other day. Matter of fact, I think Randall got asked about that earlier today, and he talked about how the crowd rattled him. But there have been times in the past where it looked like, and I didn't think last year's team had issues with it, but in previous years, I thought there were some lazy passers. But yeah, there's times where they struggle passing the ball for sure. Can't really put my finger on it as to why, but if we're just talking about Saturday, I do think the crowd got to them a little bit, and maybe even, when you got a 14-point lead and it starts to shrink all of a sudden, you start putting a little bit too much pressure on yourself. I mean, even I remember it's a terrible pass from Ian. I forget who he was trying to get it. They might have been locking down low, and he just throws it out of bounds. There's definitely some things that could get cleaned up. Character building win for basketball Saturday. Yeah, I believe it was. The way that thing played out in the second half, and they were still able to hold on and then, come out on top in overtime. Not only that, it was a quad one win. It might not be a month from now, but right now it is. And the way the ACC is this year, you're not going to have many opportunities for quad one wins. So you need to take advantage of them when you get them. And that puts Clemson at 3-2 in quad one games right now. Pretty good mark. But yeah, I agree. I think it's definitely a character builder for sure. I think Dabo has got it right by adding more seasoned and mature coach like Allen to help groom your next DC, and the same as offensive line coach. Yeah, I think he might have the right mixture in there right now, and with veteran guys and younger guys who don't have as much experience, as opposed to a few years ago where he had a lot of inexperience on the offensive side of the ball. We've talked about that a bunch in here, but there's not a lot of inexperience on the defense side of the ball. I still kind of see Tom Allen as he might not be specific to linebackers, but he's going to have a lot of input. He's going to help coach linebackers, even though he might not be specific to get linebackers, and he might not only coach linebackers. I just don't know that I'd look at it as if Boulware is going to be, in the captain seat there. I see it as him, having a larger role and more expanded role, him really starting to get into coaching this year, on-field coaching that is, and being guided by guys like Allen and Lorenzo Ward, something they didn't have on the offensive side, several years back when they had all that inexperience. Now, I think you got the right mixture between, experience and maybe inexperience. You got enough experienced guys to help lead the way for those inexperienced guys, if that makes sense. 4 or 5 years ago, you had a bunch of, inexperienced assistants on the offensive side of the ball, and no one kind of leading the way there. But I do think Dabo's got the right guy, in Tom Allen. I said that last week. I believe it even more now after we got to listen to him speak the other day. I know I'm not the first to say it, but he absolutely won that press conference the other day. Your insinuation was that Boulware is an in-your-face guy like Venables. Maybe you're not talking about me here. I was about to say, I don't think I've talked about that. Thoughts on what Notre Dame chancellor said about possibly making Clemson a yearly contest? You want to play Clemson every year? Join the ACC. That's my thoughts on it. I think they might need that more than Clemson needs that. You want to play Clemson every year? Join the ACC. Has the thing happened yet that you talked about last week? You said yes, and I did on the Facebook page. It was about Capart's waiver. I had found out that day that he was enrolled in school, which means he's planning on coming back. Now they're just waiting, on the official word. From my understanding, they sent the waiver in. The NCAA sent it back saying there was a little bit more information they needed, but it's 100% expected he's going to be back next year. Just waiting to make it official. He's got till I think Dabo said February 6th before he would really have to make a decision one way or the other. But he's enrolled in school, and they are under the impression that he's getting the waiver. Start the season 1 week early. Every team get one bye during the season and not two. That would make the game the first week of January. Most years, teams only get one bye. This year was one. What is this? Every 3 years or every 4 years they get two byes. Can't remember for sure. But usually you only get one. But this year was the year that they got two. He thought of second and third place playing for ACC champion. You see, it's not insane if you have an automatic bid that you're playing for, and you wouldn't be playing for an ACC championship. You'd be playing for a spot in the playoff. The regular season chat, they would probably change the name of the game to something else. But no, it doesn't make any sense unless you're playing for an automatic spot in the playoff. Otherwise, what are you playing for? The third place team has absolutely nothing to play for. There's probably no way they're getting in, win or lose, unless there's an automatic bid on the table. So maybe Phillips knows something that we don't, that maybe when they expand again, the ACC is going to get a second spot, because that's the only way this thing makes any sense. I think Dabo was going to have to do a lot of clear explaining to keep fans and players from getting nervous about more people hands-on coaching who never coached before. First thing I'll say is every coach has got to start out somewhere. It's good. Every coach has their first year, but yeah, I would fully expect there'll be, he will get into more detail about this stuff come to spring, because I don't think they've got everything ironed out exactly the way they're going to do it just yet. I think they're still working on it, and I think that's why I think he was intentionally vague, because he doesn't have all the final answers yet. But I would fully expect that come the spring. And heck, even if he's not, there's several practices media is allowed into. We'll be able to see who's coaching who and who's doing what. I guess he's saying Notre Dame. I guess, are you saying Notre Dame, Ohio State will still be least watched college football championship ever? Because there's a lot of people thinking that game tonight might be the most watched ever. What position is my biggest concern for 2025? You know, I'm gonna say safety right now because there's some unknowns there. I like what they've, I like what they've got at corner. I like what they got at linebacker right now, though. I wish they had a little bit more depth. I like what they've got along the defensive front. I like the offensive line. If nobody leaves after the spring, Clemson's going to have 18 scholarship offensive linemen next year. I mean, when's the last time you heard that? I like what they got at receiver, quarterback. I like what they got at running. I fully believe that Gideon Davidson is going to be the guy at running back next year. So for me, it's safety. With R.J. Mickens moving on, who kind of steps up and fills that void? We saw Khalil Barnes kind of struggle playing the safety spot opposite him some this year. I think Barnes is better in the nickel, but I don't know how it's going to work out at safety next year. So, to me, that's the biggest question for me. All right. Clemson can keep up the 3-point shooting and rebounding. They can make a deep tournament run. My biggest concern for this team would be the depth. They're not getting a lot from the bench outside of Dylan Hunter. And if Shefflin, continues to struggle with those back spasms, all bets are off. But I expect, he's starting to come on a little bit, but I expected more from Hyde Breeder. I expected a little bit more from Christian Reeves. I knew he wasn't going to come out and score 10 points a game, but I expected a little bit more than what we're getting. There's just not a lot of depth. That's the one thing that concerns me about the basketball team. Our basketball team will go as far as our centers can rebound, and Chase Hunter will take us. Chase Hunter is a 25 a night guy if we run some more offense with the ball in his hands. Yeah, I'm a big Chase Hunter guy. I'm trying to think back to I forget what game it was where he took the 3-pointer at the end and missed it, and he caught a lot of heat for it. And I think even Brownell said he wished he'd have driven inside, but that's a guy, man, that you just got to put your trust in, man, and live or die with the decisions. Yeah, I think this team's got potential that they can make a deep run if everybody stays healthy. To me, that's the biggest thing because I worry about the depth a little bit, man. There's several guys playing a lot of minutes, and you worry about what kind of effect that's going to have on their legs come March. What's my expectation this year and role for Adam Randall? Well, we've already been told that he's going to move to running back, so that's kind of my role. That's kind of where I see him. A lot of that's going to depend on him, though, and how much he can soak up. If he can learn the offense from a running back standpoint and learn the blitz pickups and the blocking stuff that goes along with playing running back, I believe he's a guy that can be in the rotation. We saw what he's capable of with the ball in his hands as a back against Texas. He's just got to be able to. He's got to be a guy that they can trust to protect the quarterback, and do the things he needs to do when he's not carrying the ball. 2 of Texas's sacks came when Randall was on the field. I don't think that was by coincidence, and that's not a knock on him because, from my understanding, they taught him 4 running plays and no pass protection. If he can't pass block, you need to get him off the field and passing downs. That's a whole different discussion for a different day, though. I think this is a big spring for him, though, for sure. It's probably not the most difficult move you can make, but I don't know that it's the easiest either because there's some things you got to Again, there's some things you got to learn from a blocking perspective. You can't get the quarterback killed. But I absolutely think he's got some potential there. I mean, I don't see him winning the starting job. I'll be surprised if he wins the second string job. It's probably not out of the realm of possibility, but I'll be surprised if he does it, particularly if Jay Haynes is healthy by the start of the season. But I definitely think he's a guy that can help for sure. I mean, you got to put yourself in a position where you don't want to depend on one back all season long, because doing that this past year ended up costing them and biting them in the rear end. So, yeah, you better have 2 or 3 ready to go, and I can see him being one of those guys. I just don't know that I see him being the starter or the second guy, but I can see him being a guy that gets, I don't know, 3, 4 carries a game and see what he does. Special teams need some extra work. I think everybody can agree on that point. We have a good punter. We'll see what they do there, man. Again, you got the big 6'4", 240-pound Jack Smith, who's kind of been waiting behind Swanson for a couple years. But, like I've said before, every time Dabo mentions him, it seems like he also says the word inconsistent in the same sentence. So this is a big spring for him, because if he does not, lock that job up in the spring, I think Clemson's going to go get one out of the portal. Prefer guys who are playing at a high level to be coaching their positions in the first place, giving Boulware a shot with heavy Allen squared oversight. See, that's kind of how I see this playing out. You know, Boulware not being the guy, just being one of the guys, with Allen kind of overseeing everything. And maybe he oversees more than just linebackers. Just because he oversees the linebacker room doesn't mean he can't go do this at certain points or do that at certain points. That's kind of how I see it playing out. Still, Dabo still got some questions to be answered there for sure. Really love what Zachary brings to basketball as far as the defense goes. It was the only thing we lacked with Gerard last year. Absolutely, he's 100% a defensive upgrade compared to Gerard for sure, who didn't give you much of anything on the defensive end. The only question, he's just not the scorer that Gerard is, but man, he gives you so much, different things that he kind of makes up for not shooting 3, 4, 5 threes a night. Although there are nights where he will do that, has done that. He just doesn't do it every night. As good as he is defensively, some of the hustle plays he makes, steals and those kind of things, man, he's going to make up for that in other ways. To me, as much as I love Gerard on the offensive side, I think Zachary's an upgrade. That's just my opinion, and people might disagree with that. I just think he's a more well-rounded. Really looking forward to baseball season. Interested to see how the position battles pan out. Yeah, I don't know that there are many positions that are settled just yet. Especially listening to Eric talk to the guy at D1 Baseball the other day. It didn't even sound like Chufo was a guarantee to be a shortstop, that he could be a third. I think there are a lot of things still to be ironed out. Might even see him tinkering with that thing, in early part of the season. Should be fun to watch, though. Yeah, we kinda already did have that with the divisions, absolutely. My favorite pie. Well, I very much appreciate that, man, and like I said, I'm not keeping anybody after 8. I'm fixing to jump off this thing here in a minute, let everybody get to their televisions. Yeah, Dabo and Kirby ran into each other on the recruiting trail. Cam Brooks, 4-star defensive end, told me he will be at the elite retreat on March 8th. I don't know, for those who didn't see it, Brooks's dad made a humorous Facebook post talking about how one coach was taking too long, so the other coach busted in there. And there's a lot of people who just assumed that the one taking too long was Kirby. Some others thinking the one took too long was taking too long was Dabo. I'm kind of in the camp of thinking maybe it was Dabo. That's just a guess on my part, man. But it looked like they made the best out of it and everything. Does the linebacker board expand? It better. It better. Because I don't think they're gonna get Atkinson. Maybe this move with Allen, and I know he liked Boulware. Maybe it helps him a little bit, man. But I just don't think they're gonna get him. Fortpa, he visited Clemson a couple of times during the season. He's not coming to the elite retreat. He has no future visits planned. Um, I don't know. Let's just say I think those are going in opposite directions of each other. Fortpa and Clemson are going in opposite directions of one another. So yeah, and obviously Storm Miller, Blake Miller's younger brother. If I had to pick one of the three they had the best shot with right now, it'd be him. For me, I'm concerned with Avery. I see a couple people saying they're concerned with running back. The only reason I don't say running back is because that's how much I know about Gideon Davis, and that's how high my expectations are for him. For me, I'm concerned with Avion Terrell. He flashed earlier in the season. You know what? Let's say for whatever reason that Terrell doesn't get it figured out, because that we've already seen it. That's a guy with a high ceiling, a lot of potential that struggled on the back end of the season. There's still some other dogs in that room, man. People forget Corey and Gibson is still there. That is a guy that was a fringe 5-star coming out of high school. Tavoy Fegan is, still there. Both those guys redshirted last year. So, I mean, there's other guys they could turn to at corner if need be. Yeah, I was thinking it was the Memphis game. Should we keep Spiller for running backs? Well, he's staying. I think it's time for a change, in my opinion. Spiller's going to get the blame for not having other guys ready at running back, and maybe he should shoulder some of that blame. I don't know that he should shoulder all of it. Different guys develop at different places. Still think Clemson's kind of feeling the effects of, I think it was 2022 when they went all in on Trevor Etienne. Dabo promised him they wouldn't go after anybody else till he made a decision. Well, he makes a decision right before signing day, and Clemson never moves on, even though it was pretty apparent all along he wasn't coming to Clemson. But, kudos to Dabo. He kept his word and kind of put them in a bind, and they didn't really have anybody else to go get. Almost landed the Andrew Paul kid, and then all of a sudden he got his dream offer from Georgia. He ended up going there. Guess what? He's already in the portal. He's already transferred. So Clemson had to settle for Keith Adams. So I think it set him back a year. I'm still a big fan of Jay Haynes. We'll see if he can come back from that ACL. I just don't know that he's an every down back. And then, Jarvis Green's kind of been hurt a little bit. Seems like I'm getting somebody, but then you add Randall to that room. We'll see what he does next year, man. But, I thought Phil Maffa improved dramatically as a running back under Spiller. So, I mean, I don't want to – I think it's unfair to sit here and pretend guys aren't developing. I think Jay Haynes improved from year 1 to year 2 under Spiller. Make no mistake, I think he's a guy that's still kind of learning on the job, but I also think he's got other coaches there that he can lean on. And with that, we shall bring it to an end. Want to thank my sponsor once again, A-Glass. For when you need a glass, A-Glass. All your auto glass needs. They do replacement, repair. 2 locations right here in the PD. One in Florence right there on Irby Street. One in Sumter right there on Carter Road. Again, all your auto glass needs. They do replacement, repair. Get yourself a free quote, myaglass.com. We'll let everybody go watch the national title game. I appreciate everybody that tuned in tonight. And before we jump off, I meant to do this at the top, and I almost forgot it again. I was supposed to do it last Monday, and I totally forgot, so I want to apologize. But everybody was on here last week. Remember me, I can't remember. Somebody asked me about a Facebook post I made about taking the polar bear plunge while I was at the beach a couple weekends ago. The wife and I went to the beach weekend before last and ran into this wonderful family, Benton family. Met Keith Benton. They were telling me how his little brother's a big fan and promised I'd give him a shout out on the show last week. Totally forgot about it. My fault. So, Lawson, much appreciation. Thank you very much for tuning in every week. Same goes to your whole family. Seemed like a stand-up group. And with that, we'll be right back here next Monday. We're going to start diving into baseball starting next week. I'm going to know a little bit more. I'm hopefully going to go watch some practice this week. Then I'll have a much better idea of, where I kind of see some things or how some things will play out. So next Monday, if you want to talk baseball, jump on here, 7 p.m., just like we do every Monday. Once again, thanks to everybody that's tuned in tonight. If you have not, hit that like button. If you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. See y'all next Monday.